Hi, everybody. It's been a while. Welcome. I'm Rhonda Lee Jones. Welcome to Rhonda Lee Jones Comedy Lab, where I talk about my experiences as a comedian and share with you things as I learn them. Wow, it's been such a long time. Things are very different now. I've started doing shows, for one thing, which is a very, very different experience from just doing open mics in a very positive way, mostly. People who come out to shows, it's a little bit easier because people who come out for shows are ready to laugh. You don't have to work quite as hard, winning them over. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do the work in the beginning of the set. Definitely still do what you're doing, work just as hard for them, as you do for your open mic audience, and it will pay off like crazy dividends and laughs. It's just easier. I think it's easier to connect with show audiences than it is open mic audiences because the open mic people, I think they come out there a little bit jaded, or they don't know what they're going to see, or they're not, they don't have a plan for the evening. If somebody paid for a show, they come out determined to laugh. So, we take advantage of that. That is the best thing. So that's one thing that's going on with me. And the reason I am in a position where I'm doing shows is, honestly, I've been in the right place at the right time. I'm not actively pursuing shows. They're kind of coming to me right now. And the reason I'm not pursuing them is that I just have, a lot going on in my life right now. And when that settles down, then I'll start, really putting work into networking and getting shows and things like that. But right now, I just get asked to help out, a good bit. So I say yes to those opportunities. So yeah, that's what's been going on. I'm also reading, I don't know if this is going to be backwards. Yeah, it looks like that's backwards. It's Jerry Seinfeld's book, Is This Anything? It's I like it. It's just a book of his bits. That's all it is, just his bits. Each section has a little bit of stuff in it about him talking about what it's like being a comedian, being himself specifically, his experiences, but there's not a lot of that going on. It's just his bits. And so I think the value of that is you get to see his writing process a little bit, maybe not the process, but definitely the result of it, what his bits look like. They look different than my bits do. They're simpler, which, I thought maybe I should write a little bit more simply. Maybe it would help me remember stuff a little bit better, because my bits tend to be a little bit convoluted. I'll have things embedded in bits. I have lots of lists going on. That's just how my thought process goes. It's probably going to always be that way. I'm probably just going to, envy people who can write simpler bits. Because now that I've written this convoluted bit, I have to remember it. But sometimes it comes out simply, it comes out well. It works out well most of the time. But I think it's interesting to look at the writing process and how that works for different people, so that you can learn from them and maybe get ideas. Maybe simplifying my bits is an idea that I have now that I'll work toward. Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I won't do that. Who knows? But I've been exposed to it now, and I can see things like with Seinfeld's bits. I don't think they're funny on the page. They're hilarious when he does them, and I'm like, how does he do this? How does he do this? I read it, and it's not funny. So that makes me calm, but that makes me calm down a little bit about what I'm doing on the page. Don't beat myself up so much if it's not funny on the page, because where the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in what happens when you're on that stage. It doesn't matter if you read it and it's not funny. If you get up and do it and it's funny, that's all that matters. So So it's made me able to actually write more bits because I'm not pressuring myself to be, funny in maybe a literary way where I was before, and even when something is funny on the page, it doesn't mean it's going to be funny when you get up and do it. You have to, it's a back and forth process. You have to get up and experiment, see what works, murder your darlings, they say. In literary circles, they talk about murdering your darlings, which means a writer can write something and they love it. But if it's not working, you have to delete it. You know, End of story. I don't care how much you love it. If it doesn't work, get rid of it. So, and you wind up getting rid of things that you really love sometimes because of that. I was on a, I was on a post one time. I didn't post anything, but I read a lot of wisdom from other comedians, and the question was, what is the best advice you have ever gotten from another comedian about comedy? And one of the people said, this was new to me. I don't know, it may not be new to you, but they said, write what you love, but keep what they love. Write what you think is funny, but keep what the audience thinks is funny. Um, which, I keep that in my mind all the time now. And it helps me. It helps me know what to get rid of, and what to play with and what to keep, and what to expand. And you have to just really pay attention to how they are reacting to it. Yeah, so much has happened. I'm just kind of in a different place. I've got a show coming up on Tuesday, which is in 2 days. So I am a freaking nervous wreck right now. I noticed that a part of doing comedy is the emotional response you have to your own comedy, to the experience of doing comedy. And I noticed that a couple of days before a show, I'm a nervous wreck. I'm a lot better just before the show. I'm still nervous, but I've accepted, whatever's going to happen at that by that point. But 2 days before a show, I'm not in that place. I am freaking out. I'm studying my lines. I'm rehearsing like a crazy person. I'm pacing and talking to myself. And that's part of my process. That's just part of my process. So I have to be a little crazy, I think, a couple of days before a show to do a good job because I get to a place of, I think, productive anxiety, which is anxiety that helps you. It doesn't feel good. I don't like the way this feels. I don't like the way I feel a couple of days before a show. I feel like a nutcase. Um, and that's something that you have to know as a new comedian, as someone who's just about to get up on stage, or someone who's just started doing mics, or someone who only does mics. The emotional responses that you're having are completely normal. Comedians are nutcases. I mean, who in their right mind would get up and do this stuff, guys? Honestly, you're already crazy. So comedy's going to make you just a little bit more crazy. So just so that that you're aware of that. When you bomb a set, you're going to have all kinds of feelings about that. When you get up and you're a different person on stage than you thought you were in real life, you're going to have an emotional reaction toward that. You've got to process all of those feelings, and you've got to let yourself process all of those feelings so that when you get up on stage, you can be vulnerable for your audience. I don't think I've talked about vulnerability in comedy, but I've noticed that the greatest comics out there, the ones that are consistently getting the laughs, the ones that have the careers, the ones that are doing really well, they get up on stage and they are vulnerable with their feelings. I've seen a lot of comedians get up on stage at different levels, get up on stage and refuse to be vulnerable with their feelings. And it comes off very differently. I don't think you can be, and I could be completely wrong about this, but I just don't think it's as likely for you to be a successful comedian in a big way if you're not being vulnerable up there, because the audience wants to identify with you. And if you're not telling them some real truths, which is what vulnerability is, you don't put up that wall and show your mask. You strip that mask away. You might have a comedic mask, but you're using that to provide authentic reactions to your experiences as a human being on this planet. And when you do that, the audience sees that vulnerability, and they're able to feel vulnerable themselves, and they're able to process those emotions for themselves, because we're all having the same experiences. We're having them in different ways. But when you get up there on stage, you are talking about their lives as much as you're talking about your own. And when they feel that, then that's what vulnerability is. You're telling that truth. When they feel you telling that truth about their lives, which suddenly you're reading their mind somehow, and it just really, it allows them to process that emotion and to turn something that was maybe an unpleasant experience into a funny experience. That's what comedy is. We're allowing people to reframe their own experiences. So it's about them, guys. It feels like, it feels very narcissistic when you get up on stage. It feels like it's all about you, but it's really about them more than it is about you. You're just using yourself as a vehicle to get into their heads. Whew, I didn't know I was going to talk about that. It's kind of deep. It's kind of deep. That's why we're all crazy, by the way, because we're doing this really hard thing. And we're making ourselves so open for these people, these strangers that come to laugh at us. That's why we're all nuts. I forgot to say something about, in my little comment area, about today's comedy lab. Um, remembering your bits, remembering your sets. That's another biggie. I would really like to have a group therapy session with nothing but other comedians about comedy. So I could talk about all these things with people who understand. Because we're doing this thing to ourselves. We're giving ourselves these problems that we have to work out. And it would be so nice to have a group of people, where I could talk about this with, because your friends, their understanding is limited. Even your other performer friends, it's nice to talk to other performers, but unless you're doing stand-up comedy with me, you're not going to understand my experiences as much. It's a comedy thing. Who knows? Who knows? It would be so nice. I think you all are probably in that same place. Would just be nice to have a group of people I could talk about my comedy problems with. Yeah. With someone at the head of the room to herd all these cats. Because comedians they can sort of bounce off the walls a little bit, but it would be nice to have that. Um, I don't know if there's anything else I really need to talk about today. I'm going to start doing these more often again, trying to do it once a week. It's just, I was trying to do it in a much more prescribed way, I guess, with notes and all that good stuff. I think I'm just going to come here every week and just talk to you. Just like, this is where I am emotionally. This is what's going on with me. This is what it's like to be a comedian this week, because it changes from week to week. I'm just trying to do more. I'm trying to write more. I'm trying to figure out how to keep my old material viable while I work on new material. So I've decided that in the mornings, I'm going to spend half an hour just going over old material, just going over it, not even doing anything special with it to memorize it, just reading it or watching a video of myself performing it. Just spending that time every day to do it, to touch it, just to touch the material a little bit, and then spend another half hour doing the same thing with new material. Because we're always juggling as comedians. We're always juggling, trying to remember our lines while trying to work on our delivery, while trying to keep old material straight in our heads, while learning new material, while meeting people who can help our careers, while like, how in the world is any comedian sane? No wonder everybody's taking cocaine, doing cocaine. Can you say taking cocaine? No wonder everybody's on drugs. Oh my God. Me, I have a glass of wine. This is what I do. Um, we're all crazy here, folks. We're all mad here. This is like Alice in Wonderland. We're all in Wonderland. We don't know what to eat, what to drink, what's going to make me bigger, what's going to make me smaller. We're all in Wonderland. And, we're chasing that white rabbit, which sounds trying to avoid the Queen of Hearts. This is what we're doing as comedians. So, I wish you guys good luck in your efforts. I'm enjoying mine most of the time. There are times when I don't enjoy it as much. When it's like today, I'm just having a time. I'm in my crazy place today. But I know it's going to pass. I know it's going to pass, and I know this is part of my process. So I'm using the time to go over my lines and to rehearse and to make sure I know what end is up, for 2 days from now, because things are going to be very different 2 days from now. And I know that because I've been through this already before and I've heard other people talk about it. Being a performer is a special kind of lifestyle, and it is a lifestyle. It's something you're there all the time in your head. I carry around a notebook so I can write down ideas because comedy doesn't come when I sit down at my desk. Comedy comes when I'm having a conversation with a friend, or when I'm at work driving a car, or when I'm talking to a coworker, or when I'm sitting at a red light or at a train. I mean, that's when ideas come. So I have to be prepared all the time to take that stuff down, because it's your ideas will surprise you. If they're not surprising you, you're not writing down enough stuff. Because you've got stuff going through your head that you don't even realize you've got going through your head. You have to train yourself to stop and catch that. And even if you think it sucks, if you think the idea sucks, but it's potentially funny, something made you think about it, write it down, because you don't know. You don't know until you sit down to start writing about it. And when I start sitting down and writing about it, sometimes a bit I thought was going to go in one direction goes in a completely different direction. Sometimes stuff that I didn't think was going to be funny ends up funny. Sometimes stuff I thought was going to be hilarious ends up being a dud. So you don't know what's going to happen when you write in your notebook. And please have a notebook with you all the time. You don't know what's going to happen when you recall that stuff at the end of the day. You don't know what's going to happen when you sit down at your computer, if that's how you do it, or at your yellow pad, to write. You don't know what's going to happen. You can surprise yourself. You don't know who you are inside your head most of the time. None of us do. It's those moments when you surprise yourself is when a lot of the real comedy comes out. So just allow that. Just my rule for the day that I sometimes live by is I have to write down 3 funny things that day. Either a funny idea, something funny that somebody said, something funny that happened to me. I have to write down 3 funny ideas every single day. And at the end of the day, I take one of those ideas and I try to write a bit. And I say try because I'm not writing a finished product here. I'm just drafting out something. I'm spending maybe half an hour or 15 minutes drafting out something. And then at the end of the week, I take all of those drafts and I choose one that I'm going to rewrite, and I'm going to try and make something out of. So that's 52 bits a year that I wouldn't have otherwise. So that's how I do it. I have a process and I try to follow it. And I say try because I'm not always successful following it, but even trying to follow it, it gives me so much more material than I would have otherwise. So there, have a process and do it, and don't beat yourself up when you can't do it, just try again, so that's my little piece of advice for you. I've been doing comedy. I started doing comedy 3 years ago. I started 3 years ago. I was down in on Marco Island, and I started doing comedy at a club down there, which I can't remember what it's called. Laugh In, I think it was called Laugh In. But I started doing comedy there, and I would do it once a week at open mics. And then I came back to Augusta, Georgia, which is where I am now, my hometown. And I started acting in films and not really doing comedy. And then 2 years ago, I started doing comedy regularly. So I call myself doing comedy for 2 years, because that's how long I've been doing it regularly. Maybe 2.5 by now. I forget with the pandemic, it just kind of messes with me a little bit. But during the pandemic, I did Zoom mics, so I was still active. So I still count that time. A lot of comics don't count their pandemic time as time that they've been doing comedy, but I do because I was doing the Zoom mics. I was doing what was available, which is what we comics do. We use what's available. So yeah, I've only been doing this for a couple of years, guys, and I work hard at it, and where I see I'm not working hard, I change what I'm doing, you know. So I've gotten a lot better at it. I'm good at writing comedy now. I'm good at writing bits. Where I'm having to put in most of my work is my delivery. And I don't have a lot of opportunity to go to open mics because I'm not living in Atlanta. I'm not living in New York. So I have to use what's available. So things, you know, I'm learning a little bit more slowly than I would, what's working and what isn't. But who knows? Who knows where I'll wind up? You know, that's a conversation for another time, I think. Um, Realizing that I can't really be the best comic that I can be in my hometown where I would really like to stay here. I would really like to stay here, but I might make the decision at some point to move to Atlanta simply because I can have open mics every single day of the week, every night of the week. And I can really be a kick ass comic if I do that. So maybe I'll talk about that next week. Who knows? Anyway, I've been Rhonda Lee Jones, and this has been Rhonda Lee Jones Comedy Lab. Um, Give me comments, give me love, follow me, all that good stuff. I love you guys. Bye. And keep doing comedy. Oh my God. Keep doing comedy.